think emotional disconnection is like a disease we all at some point have in our society, and not because we are bad human beings, but because we are human beings and we feel, and after we have struggled for a while, we build something like a wall
Mm.
around ourselves and we stop feeling so much.
Mm.
Which is not a good way, by the way, of dealing with feelings and emotions. It's not a constructive way, and it never leads to a good result. Everyone who tried to suppress over years emotions know that at some point we get the bill for that.
And I think that's the thing. You can't suppress emotions. You do pay the
Yeah,
bill eventually. Um,
yeah.
and emotions and intuition are different, but I think they're very, very closely connected. I think as you suppress one, you begin to suppress the other. But what's interesting about your own story is what I'm thinking is that you said as a young girl you were very intuitive, um, but when you went into the corporate world, you learned that that wasn't how the corporate world operated.
Yes.
So you began to operate in a different. You began to operate in a different way. Now we need in business to analyze the data. We need to know the numbers. Is the challenge that we've become? I mean, where's the balance? I mean, where's the balance between trusting our intuition, our gut, and also going, well, we need data.
Yeah, I think analyzing data is very nice. I love doing that. Yeah.
Mm,
And every time I overdo, I'm making a mistake. And
mm,
now I have come to a point where I have this awareness to realize that I'm overdoing with the data. And the more I overdo and do another bit reading, another bit of reading, another one talk in order to get my feeling or inner certainty in a decision, I'm just making a mistake. So looking for data is sometimes like a replacement for connecting to our own wisdom or truth or to what we know is right. And it's of course helpful, but it will in the most cases, not solve the situation. Yeah. No one, I think, if you go on a holiday and want to look for a hotel and start looking at 20,000 hotels, in the end you will feel lost, right?
mm.
Not more informed, you will feel lost. And that's what happens. We don't need the next AI tool. We need in the next step to connect to ourselves and to start recognizing when do I have a very clear feeling for something, a very clear intuition, a very clear guidance,
Mm.
and when do I feel a bit more open to a solution. And of course, it doesn't. We don't have to do it for the big cases that involve millions. We can practice on small things, in small situations. That's how we can train also our trust and our intuition that many of us have lost over the years.
I presume our intuition can get it wrong.
Uh, in my experience, after studying it for many years, no.
No. Okay.
But we can mix intuition with, for example, fears or some other programming or beliefs that we have.
So you're telling me our intuition is never wrong?
Well, it's like your inner guidance. So that's not wrong. What is
Mm,
wrong is if I make a decision based on fear or
mm.
based on ego, and I think that's intuition.
Yeah.
No, that's not intuition. That's my fear speaking. If
Yeah.
I make a decision because I think, oh, I will save money if I do something, but that's not intuition. It's
The
so it's
question
it
the
yeah.
question then is how do I know the difference?
So observation and practice.
Okay. Because if I have someone if I have someone working for me and they tell me they're making all their business decisions based on intuition, I'm gonna get very nervous, I'm being honest.
Yeah, yeah. It needs to be. We need to develop confidence in that, and
Mm,
also learn how it works,
mm,
and learn to recognize: is this now intuition or is this some external interference with us?
mm,
So I don't in any case say we just have to listen to intuition and everything will be good. No.
mm,
But equally ignoring our impulses to do something or
mm,
our ideas that come seemingly out of nowhere, well, This can be also quite expensive at some point if we ignore them. So it's a little bit of a balance and a learning process.
And learning to trust what the inner wisdom is
Yes.
guiding us to, and learning to differentiate then between this is my fear telling me to do something or not do something. Um, I have made decisions based on again I don't know what word to use, but really feeling I wanted to do something or something was right, and it's turned out badly. Was that me? Was that me listening to my intuition? Was it not my intuition? Was I ignoring something else?
Well, I cannot, I don't know exactly the
Yeah.
details of your of your decisions. And sometimes when I make something that doesn't turn out well, I still learn from that.
Mm,
And even if it might not feel comfortable and pleasant, and this happens every now and then, that I do something where I think, okay, that was really not the most pleasant experience. Um, but it's helping me to sharpen my senses, to sharpen my skills and my perspectives. So it's a learning process,
mm.
and to start recognizing intuition and acting on that.
So are you proposing this to organizations as or to leaders within organizations? 'Cause they're two different things: a leader making a decision and then an organization taking it on board. Are you proposing it to leaders as a skill they're not using and they need to add into their toolkit of skills? Is that how you're?
Yes, when they feel that they at some point where they feel stuck, like in the way I was,
Okay.
sometimes that's the challenge, to start feeling more, to connecting to ourselves. Sometimes intuition is not the only one solution. Sometimes just to start feeling like a human being again. Many people in business, especially when they climb the ladders, they stop feeling so much and just functioning,
Mm,
just taking care of fires that break out somewhere in the organization, becoming a victim to their full agendas, and not really living life. So sometimes it's this growth is when they reconnect to what's important to them. And of course, recognizing intuition, but that's one element of the whole, let's say, inner growth.
yeah. I feel like maybe it has to start outside of the business. I mean, it has to start on a very personal level and maybe I know I asked about fulfillment early on, so maybe this is the warning sign for someone. I had a conversation with a group of entrepreneurs yesterday about stress and anxiety, and one of the things that came of the conversation was that stress is can be a warning sign. I mean, it's the event, but it's also an alert, a message to you that maybe, like your intuition, that something is slightly off track. But certainly, what was evident around the table is that stress, anxiety, worry, obsession over the business is prevalent in people, in entrepreneurs that the external world see as very successful, and yet their internal world is
Hmm.
a lot of stress, a lot of a lot of anxiety, and these are materially very successful people, but there's a whole lot of anxiety going on.
Yeah, sleepless nights, high blood pressure,
Mm.
health problems,
Yeah.
and they cannot just step out on a holiday for 2 weeks because that's sometimes not possible
Mm.
when the business is centered around themselves.
Mm. But also they've become so involved in the business that they find that they've become used to this. They've become used to this way of living. They've become used to this being on this treadmill, and they now find that they just can't. Even if they could step off it, it's like they don't want to, because it's now what they don't know what to do when they step off.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think it ties nicely to your question in the beginning about, is this about intuition or about growth, and why do we have to grow? Well, we don't have to grow. We have to reconnect to the parts of ourselves that we have suppressed, ignored,
Mm.
or we didn't think they exist because we had the priorities on business for good reasons, right?
Mm.
Probably many payrolls depend on the one entrepreneur and founder. Um, and we have not learned how to reconnect with ourselves. And that's what I see, especially in business people. How do I reconnect? Especially if I have been so focused on work, working 12 hours a day, 14
Mm.
hours a day, no holidays. And at some point, the breaking point comes where people have to reconsider and they're forced to reconsider. I was also forced to reconsider.
Mm. But there's consequences if you don't reconsider.
Yeah, there are very clear consequences. We can postpone, but at some point there will be health topics. The private life will suffer.
Mm.
The business will ultimately suffer. So yeah, ultimately what we want to protect, like business and families, for example, they will suffer. And yeah, we don't notice on time.
I wonder, have you noticed a difference between between men, between women, between different nationalities, between different cultures that have different views to business? Because I just again I witness so many people that I perceive and we perceive as successful, um, living living lives trapped in their businesses and trapped in their work. And by the way, we all need to make a living. There's no question about that. But I don't know. We just seem to, as a society, have prioritized that above all else, and it just leads to an empty life.
Yeah, to an empty life and deteriorating health, deteriorating family situations. Everything at some point deteriorates, and not because we are bad, but because we didn't know how to set it up in a healthy way,
Mm.
how to work in a healthy way, how to design our business in a healthy way. That's why, for example, I don't see myself like a coach
Mm.
because I have also so much business experience, and I know
Mm.
just working with someone one to one doesn't help if they have to manage a huge organization and they don't know how to change after that the responsibilities of the different other people in the organizations. That's why it's always interlinked with many different elements and a lot of responsibilities.
So, do you find that senior leaders then are concerned that they will lose authority or respect if they show a softer side? Because that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about bringing a more human side of ourselves to our decision making, to our business, to how we engage in the world.
I think it's a bit of a false premise we have grown up with that we have to appear as non-human in order to be professional. And I have seen this so often.
Mm.
In one of my first jobs, I had a manager that was a big automotive company, global, and this manager was telling us about someone else who had to go to the hospital. His wife was giving birth, and he had to leave some very important committee meeting.
Mm.
And my boss, this manager, was saying, "This other person is so unprofessional." And I'm thinking, okay, interesting,
Mm.
because the baby didn't know what is the professional time to
Yeah.
come. And obviously, there are situations where we all have to act human.
Mm.
But we have grown to think that becoming inhuman, professional, we call it, is the solution. Well, it's not, because we typically lead organizations consisting of people and we sell products to people. And
Mm.
if I act inhuman, no one will relate to me. If I show my humanness every now and then in some curated way, people will relate to me much more. They will be much more willing to work with me because they see me as a human and not as a professional only. That's so polished that no one can
Mm.
relate to.
But we are just human beings fundamentally, and yeah, I get. I mean, I've spoken to so many people, but I get to speak to so many people on the podcast, and fundamentally, so many people are just the same. We all do different things. we've different colored skin, we speak differently, whatever. But fundamentally, when you get to speak to people, people are all the same, and want similar things out of life. Most people want a
Mhm.
happy life. They want good health. They want friends and family. Almost everyone you speak to, that's what you want. So that's like a fundamental human need. And for most of us, we also want prosperity, but we want prosperity in order to sustain that lives. And I think what I'm observing is that we've gotten that the wrong way round. Now we're pursuing these professional lives, these careers, these businesses. By the way, I'm all in favor of building a business, but
Hmm.
not at the not sacrificing our humanity and becoming inhuman in order
Yes.
to do that. And by inhuman, I simply mean by not recognizing that this is a small part. It's a very important part of our lives, but it's a small part of our lives. I mean, what we
Yeah.
do professionally.
Yeah, but even in our professional life, that's why I called it a false premise, because uh, I'm sure everyone would prefer to buy a product from a company that we relate to, that we feel that they represent some values that we share with them. For example, Apple in the beginning, yes, it was nice technology, but people related to the innovation, to Steve Jobs, um, to his humanness in a way, how
Yeah.
he eats only fruit and nothing else, and he goes to India and whatever. People related to him as a human. Not
Mm,
everyone has to do the same, but they had a connection to him, perceived connection.
mm,
But even in business, that's a necessary thing to reconnect and start finding ways. How can I be more human? And that's not an easy thing to do,
mm,
because we have tried so many years to be professional that becoming real is really difficult, because I have asked myself this also for years. What is the real me? Like, what is
mm,
the authentic me? Apart from my certifications, educational grades, whatever professional steps, the finding out the real person
mm,
behind all the superficial stuff is actually key for us to start behaving human in a way.
mm. And I'm curious, when you asked that question, what is the real me? What did you discover about yourself?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I'm still in the process of discovering. I don't think I will ever reach a goal in this. I think it's a process. Um, but I'm discovering that when I show myself as a human, people relate to me in a completely different way. And
Mm,
when I reflect back to my career, I had, for example, projects that were really, really successful, and some projects that were a bit more difficult. And the ones that were really successful, it was me as the human. And my real strengths, not some professional polished stuff, but my real strengths came to
mm,
life. And my clients wanted exactly these strengths, not my slick professional attire or something else, but
mm,
my empathy, sometimes even my ability to bring completely different perspectives to one table. People that don't talk to each other directly, and then at some point they start talking to each other in the leadership team and finding solutions. So I was even surprised when I had these experiences, because I thought I have to be
mm,
the neutral person at work that just has a very stiff face and doesn't react human. But these experiences helped me allow myself to show more of me. And actually, today I posted something on LinkedIn about feeling helpless.
mm,
Helpless. Yeah, helpless. And I was surprised how many people could relate to that.
mm,
Um, and I was a bit worried, was this now a bit too raw and authentic to
mm.
say how I feel sometimes helpless? But people can relate. And with people, I mean also founders and senior business leaders.